All right, so welcome. So here I want to go over the remainder of the vessel. So you have the arteries of the lower limb, the your descending aorta becomes the internal, the common iliac artery, which splits into the so left and right common iliac arteries splits into the internal and the external iliac arteries. So the internal services the organs of the pelvis, reproductive organs, the rectum, and then the external, of course, goes down to the legs. And so that when it gets to the femur, your thighs, it becomes a femoral bone. And the femoral bone, sorry, the femoral artery continues, and when it gets to the back of your to your patella, to your kneecap area at the back, it becomes the popliteal artery, and this is a way to remember that it's the posterior of the patella, so the popliteal artery, pop, and then the popliteal artery becomes the anterior and the posterior tibial arteries. Okay, and those, of course, go to the legs. So now the veins. So veins are, of course, the volume vessels. They hold little pressure and they take blood ultimately back to the vena cava eventually, which dumps the blood to the right side of the heart, which then sends the blood to the lungs to be oxygenated, and then we go back to the arteries. So we've talked about arteries quite a bit, but now the veins. So um, notice when we were talking about the arteries, for example, we said, oh, the brachiocephalic trunk splits into the subclavian and the carotid, right? And the carotid went on and it split, and so on. So, because that's the direction of flow, that's why we covered it that way. But when it comes to veins, remember things are going back to the heart. And so we'll start from the top going down. And so you have a superficial the temporal vein, which is right here. And that superficial temporal vein, together with the facial vein, so they take blood from your face and a lot of your head, your scalp, all of those vessels then dump into the internal jugular vein. So it's not surprising that the internal jugular vein is larger than the external, which also drains blood, but from a smaller area. And the both jugular veins now dump into the brachiocephalic vein. So this here is my basilic vein, and this here is my ulnar vein. So the basilic is the most medial, um, medial meaning towards the body, and the basilic is quite long. So that's that, and that comes from your axillary vein. So that's my axillary vein. So the ulna is medial, the basilic is medial, the axillary is medial. But again, they come from different places. Now let's talk about, so this is the axillary. Next here is my cephalic. So if this is the axillary, this is the cephalic vein. Okay. Now, and then you also do have um, the brachial vein. So again, when I say axillary, this is around where the axillary is, and it branches into the brachial vein. So that's, again, this is the biceps brachii. So it branches into the brachial vein. So this is going to be my brachial vein. And then the axillary continues down here and ultimately becomes the basilic vein. And then that brachial vein splits into, see the split right here, what becomes the ulna and the radial. And then somewhere in the middle, they are connected here with the antecubital, the median cubital vein. So your antecubitus is like um, where your elbow is, and that's the one from which typically if you ever done a blood draw, you're typically trying to target the median cubital vein. Okay, so it's that vein. So what is that one? That blue one? That's my cephalic. What is that one? Those are branches of the brachial. Now the brachial breaks into two, and those two become, and then that's the axillary, which becomes the basilic vein, and then you have your median cubital vein, and ultimately you have that would be my. Can you guess? That would be my radial, and here would be my ulna. That's still basilic actually, but um, that actually is still a basilic. So this is my ulna right here. Okay. All right. So